sex is great for sleep. Yeah, you're welcome. One of the principal reasons that we have insomnia is because of biological and psychological anxiety and stress. I am just so tired, but I'm so wired, I can't fall asleep or stay asleep.
The truth is that we are living in tumultuous times. Learning how to move into the eye of the hurricane is absolutely critical for good sleep and for health generally.
I don't care how much you sleep. I truly don't. What I care about is the consequences of your lack of sleep, not the lack of sleep itself.
When you wake up in the morning, are you looking forward to your day? Are you experiencing joy in what you are doing? How reactive am I to challenges? Are you empathetic? Are you creative? All these more intangible measures of our life are also things you should not forget to be aware of. That it's not just the numbers, it's also how we are experiencing our life.
Now that's a moonshot, ladies and gentlemen.
Time for your questions. All right, John, kick us off.
This is for Arianna. What a lovely woman you are in person. I'm just amazed. And I wanted to ask, why aren't these items taught in schools rather than waiting until somebody's an adult? And then secondly, how may I help?
Oh, fantastic. I love that you want to help. And there are so many ways. Didn't he say, how may I help?
Yeah.
Because, you're all, as Peter said earlier, in touch with people who may not have the resources that people in this room have. It could be people at schools, it could be employees, it could be nonprofits you work with. Let us know. We have a foundation. We do a lot of nonprofit work. We have like 2 little slogans. One is health is what happens between doctor visits. And when people realize that, they are empowered, they take control of what they are doing. And the other is very simple, that behavior change is a miracle drug. And we're in control of it. Peter called it being the CEO of your own health. One of the things I love about Matt is that you are such a wordsmith, you're so eloquent.
Yes.
A lot of scientists have a hard time communicating and reaching people, and Matt has been able to bridge the science with the incredible communication gift. So we can do all that. Would love to work with you and anyone here who wants to reach millions of people who are suffering.
Thank you.
So important. Tom.
Thank you, Peter. Matt, thank you. I've read some of your stuff. I love the drug idea, but I come from the world of nutrition and supplements, and there's controversy about supplements. But any supplements that you found that add to the drug that could help with all these sleep analytics? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think at first one could cynically say, if there were some Shangri-La of supplement good sleep that promised you the royal sort of night, the drug companies would have been over it, all over it 20 years ago and making billions of dollars from it. The fact that there aren't perhaps tells us something. I would say, though, that right now, one of the principal reasons that we have insomnia is because of biological and psychological anxiety and stress. It is what I would call the tired but wired phenomenon. I am so tired. I am just so tired, but I'm so wired, I can't fall asleep or stay asleep. There is evidence for 2 compounds, phosphatidylserine and also ashwagandha. Both of those seem to have the ability to tamp down the fight or flight branch of the nervous system and also, respectively, lower the amount of cortisol. They haven't been tested in the context of sleep, but they have been tested outside of the context of sleep for both of those indications. So normally, working with clients, we will often try to get them on something like that, around about 300 to 400 milligrams, together with 2 to 3 grams of glycine. And that seems to help with circadian rhythm realignment. Other than that, I would say combine that with behavioral interventions. Anything, as I said, that helps distract the mind, together with getting the physiology straight with those 2 supplements, is probably not a bad first step.
Thank you.
Amazing. By the way, when you go home, and you receive your transcript of the entire summit, your RAG, and you put it into your favorite LLM, and you say, summarize what Matt said I should do for sleep, you'll get an answer. Can't wait for that. All right, Larry.
Thank you, Peter. This is for Matt. Do you encounter or have you encountered patients that bring up the issue of restless leg syndrome and/or neuropathy as it interrupts their sleep?
Restless leg syndrome, we see that quite frequently. Restless leg syndrome, for those who aren't aware, you usually get sort of this creepy, crawly feeling in your legs. You have to massage them. It's horrific. Some people get it in the triceps too. It is one of the most undiagnosed sleep disorders out there, or at least I should say misdiagnosed. You can progressively walk up the medication pathway. You typically start with things like gabapentin or pregabalin. Pregabalin's a bit harder because it will typically make you a bit more groggy the next morning. Next level, you can go up to something like pramipixole, which actually helps tamp down some of the dopamine or modulate some of the dopamine circuits. The problem is you've got to be a bit careful because too much can lead you to become reward sensitive and risk-taking. So you've got to be really careful with managing the patient. The final step up, because you can become resistant to that over time, is certain opioid-like medications. And of course, people are nervous about those. But those are the 3 tiers right now that typically we progress through to try to pharmacologically help with restless leg syndrome.
Everybody, I hope you're enjoying this episode. You know, earlier this year, I was joined on stage at the 2025 Abundance Summit by a rock star group of entrepreneurs, CEOs, investors, focused on the vision and future for AGI, humanoid robotics, longevity, blockchain, basically the next trillion-dollar opportunities. If you weren't at the Abundance Summit, it's not too late. You can watch the entire Abundance Summit online by going to exponentialmastery.com. That's exponentialmastery.com.
I am from Greece, calling from Greece. Γεια σας, Ariadne. Thank you. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Στα αγγλικά, θα τη κάνω στα αγγλικά.
Καλησπέρα σας.
And I'm doing very well, I would say, with most of the steps about sleeping, about the movement, about the connections, but I'm struggling a little bit on this year, maybe with the unrest between countries, I would say, maybe just to put it a bit simply and light and neutral. It's been a bit hectic these last few months, and I wonder how would you help us navigate a bit maybe during these months, maybe how to be a bit less stressed, what can happen between markets, between countries.
Stress around geopolitics.
You know, that is such an interesting question. I'm so glad you asked it, because the truth is that we are living in tumultuous times, and there is so much happening that is unnerving, that learning how to move into the eye of the hurricane is absolutely critical for good sleep and for health generally. So how can we put all these problems?
There's so much we can't control.
There's so much we can't control. And there are 2 things that we highly recommend, and Matt would love to know what you think. One is no doom scrolling at night.
No doom scrolling, yes.
Pick a time that you stop reading the news. Trust me.
I stopped reading the news, period. No, you could not pay me enough to watch the evening news.
Oh, no.
Or pick up a newspaper, with all apologies to the Huffington Post here. I mean, it's like having someone, you know, my neural net, I don't want it trained by that. My mom will tell me if there's something going on in the world I need to know about.
Absolutely. Yeah. But this is key. And also, and all notifications that don't come from people you know, not just you know, you love.
Yes.
You only want notifications from people you love. You don't want notifications from the Huffington Post or CNN that are called breaking news, but trust me, 99.9% are not breaking news. So that helps you kind of get into that eye of the hurricane.
Andrew, great question. Let's go to Bert on mic 5.
Matt, what are you doing when you're traveling across time zones? Peter, you're hopping to Saudi Arabia, and 2 days later you're back.
Yes, it's a question of your best tips for jet lag, adjustment, and all of that. So, Matt, you've been developing a new product around that, I think.
So we are actually creating a compound that is going to be designed to protect you against the insufficient sleep that you will face. A lot of companies out there are trying to develop either supplements or drugs that help you sleep more. In truth, I don't care how much you sleep. I truly don't. What I care about is the consequences of your lack of sleep, not the lack of sleep itself. So we're actually we've just raised a round of funding, and we are about to start the clinical trial with a new pharmacological suite of compounds that will protect you. But to your question, what can you do now? There's a two-step approach. Things you do during the flight, things you do after the flight. During the flight, it's the following. As soon as you get on the flight, set all clock faces to the time in the new time zone. At that point, act accordingly. If people in the new time zone are awake, you need to be awake. If they're asleep, you need to try to be asleep. Alcohol and caffeine are not your friends. Try to abstain. The next is try to wake up at least to create 10 to 12 hours of sustained wakefulness the following day when you arrive, based on the time you expect to go to sleep. In other words, create enough sleepiness to try to override the lack of sleep drive that you will have when you are in the new time zone. The other thing I would say is when you arrive in the new time zone, let's say I fly from SF San Francisco to London, 8 hours ahead. I get on the flight at 8 p.m. I look at my watch, it's not 8 p.m., it's 4 a.m. London's 8 hours ahead. I should be asleep. The next thing I'm going to do is be awake when everyone else is asleep and asleep when everyone else is awake. Finally, if I really need to upon touchdown in London, I will nap for 15 minutes and I will cut myself off. I can't nap after 1 p.m. I can have one coffee strategically. Then every day I'm in the new time zone. First thing, I can use caffeine in the morning. I need to get 20 minutes of daylight within the first 2 hours, exercise before midday, eat when everyone else is eating in the new time zone. Before sleep, 1 hour before that, I need to take a hot bath or a shower. 45 minutes before, 3 milligrams of melatonin, no less. Lights out, mask, and I'm gone.
Okay.
Amazing.
One more, Peter,
what a
one
dissertation.
More thing. One more thing, which is, do you really need to go to Saudi Arabia?
That's
guys,
amazing.
It's like we need to ask ourselves these questions.
God bless you. That's
the
amazing.
idea that we always think because we're invited to go to that or go to that, we got to go. No. And if you want to live long and live healthy, say no more.
That was a great demonstration of knowledge versus wisdom and knowing the difference between the two.
Amazing, amazing. That's why God created Zoom. All right, real quick. I've been getting the most unusual compliments lately on my skin. The truth is, I use a lotion every morning and every night religiously called OneSkin. It was developed by 4 PhD women who determined a 10 amino acid sequence that is a senolytic that kills senile cells in your skin. And this literally reverses the age of your skin. And I think it's one of the most incredible products. I use it all the time. If you're interested, check out the show notes. I've asked my team to link to it below. All right, let's get back to the episode. Natalie.
I love this panel, but I want to ask you, Matt. I'm a nutritionist, naturopath. I use cortisol panels for stress. I use inositol for sleep, great, magnesium glycinate, ashwagandha, phosphatidylserine. What about using regular melatonin for inflammation, breast cancer prevention every night?
Yeah, I think melatonin it's got an interesting story with a caveat. Firstly, most people take too much. They're taking 5, 10, 20 milligrams. That's what we call a supraphysiological dose. The worry there is like testosterone replacement therapy for males. After you've consistently dosed maybe a year, year and a half, the testes will shut down their own natural production and it may never return. The worry is the same with melatonin. The second problem with
How much should you take?
So really you're aiming for between 1 to 3 milligrams.
Time release, right?
That's right. So that's what we would call a normative physiological dose. There was a study published where they looked at 20 different vendors based on what it said on the bottle. Actually, what you were swallowing ranged from 83% less to 464% more than what was stated on the bottle. So it's a bit of a wild west. I would say that melatonin is largely inert as a compound for the most part. My worry also is with a pediatric setting, it's now increasingly used. Melatonin is a bioactive hormone. it's critical for gonadal development. They did a study in juvenile male rats, teenage male rats, and they dosed them with high amounts of melatonin. It stunted testicular growth and caused testicular atrophy.
Wow.
If I go into a parent and teacher association meeting one evening and say, stand up on stage, I'd like you to start dosing your children with a bioactive hormone. In fact, I'd like you to dose them with about something that's maybe 2 or 3x the natural amount.
So no sleep aids for kids.
Right, it will stunt their developmental growth, and start doing it every night. Who's with me? So that said, I think there's a cluster of people for whom melatonin does work, but largely melatonin does not help with the generation of sleep. It helps with the timing of the sleep, and that's why it's never been really prescribed for insomnia.
Amazing. Let's go to Jason on Zoom. Jason.
I'd love to get your take on modafinil. I take it a few times a week and want to know what kind of negative impact it might have on your sleep.
Great question. Something I use when I go overseas and have to go on stage.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. Modafinil is a wake-promoting chemical as well, you know. Right now, we haven't necessarily seen long-term studies that have systematically evaluated what taking modafinil would be in terms of brain or body physiology at weekly doses. Most people I know and that we work with take it strategically only under kind of break glass in case of emergency conditions 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah.
I think right now, we don't have any evidence right now that it has marked deleterious effects other than its addictive potential. I would say, though, that when you fight biology, you normally lose. Mm-hmm. The way you know you've lost is disease and sickness. That would be my only worry in terms of free lunches. Typically in biology, there aren't any.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Jason.
This question's for Matt. So, Matt, I haven't gone to sleep before 12 p.m. probably in the last 5 years.
12 a.m. or 12 p.m?
12
sorry,
midnight.
Yes.
So
yeah.
midnight. And I live on airplanes. I travel a lot, which has been very disruptive. And something that's I've noticed, I ran an experiment on myself to try and understand sleep, because everyone said, like, how do you survive? How do you get through it? And it's really to try and understand a bit of an argument from you in terms of the timing. So I found that consistency was more important than the timing.
Yes.
Okay, so that was the first thing. The second thing was obviously darkness. You needed to create the darkness. And then alcohol and sugar were actually the biggest influences. So it didn't matter, you know, if I had that consistent, but I spiked sugar, messed up my sleep, alcohol messed up my sleep. And then I could have a coffee 30 minutes before bed. So to the coffee metabolism issue, like, it doesn't bother me at all. I can sleep straight after that. And then with the data, measuring it through Aura and ultrahumans and glucose monitors, etc., the data showed that my stress was low, my heart rate 44 to 45 or 48, let's say, on rest mode. And even last night, for example, I've traveled from Dubai, so it's a 16-hour flight. Put the friend's headset. I thought maybe the data was incorrect from my previous stuff. 12 p.m. sleep, 6 a.m., 1.5 hours deep sleep. So what's going on with me that's different to, I don't know, what data says typically?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there is anything different going on. I think these measures of things like stress, they're a decent first proxy, but they don't go into the cell and they don't go into the organ systems of the body. So if I were you, I would be doing, let's say, blood panels, and I would really want to know, can I convince myself that the schedule that I've just described comes with absent deleterious effects on my biology? At that point, then I would say, that's fantastic. And you would want to do the within subject design where you are stable and you're sleeping. Try to find, 4 or 5, for you maybe, try to say a 2-week period where you're stable. Do blood panel work after that 2 weeks of good solid sleep. Use that as your reference. Step and repeat when you are in intense travel and ask yourself the hard biological question, do I see any detriments? If not, then I would say you may be one of those people who has incredible resilience. All I know is, based on the data, and this is no slight, the number of people who can survive on at least less than 7 hours of sleep without showing any impairment on all of our measures, rounded to a whole number and expressed as a percent of the population, is 0.
Interesting. I like the biological. I think
Arianna,
it's good.
You have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to add, you mentioned the proxy for stress. I don't think we should minimize the fact that a great proxy is joy. Like when you wake up in the morning, are you looking forward to your day? Are you experiencing joy in what you're doing? Are you reactive? I mean, my barometers are not just my Oura Ring. Trust me, I track all that. But it's also how reactive am I to challenges? You know, we all have challenges every day. How am I handling it? Sometimes when I've had a really good night's sleep, I know that I can say, bring it on. I'll handle that. Are you empathetic? Are you creative? All these more intangible measures of our life are also things you should not forget to be aware of. That it's not just the numbers, it's also how we are experiencing our life.
Everybody, I want to take a short break from our episode to talk about a company that's very important to me and could actually save your life or the life of someone that you love. The company is called Fountain Life. And it's a company I started years ago with Tony Robbins and a group of very talented physicians. You know, most of us don't actually know what's going on inside our body. We're all optimists. Until that day when you have a pain in your side, you go to the physician in the emergency room and they say, listen, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have this stage 3 or 4 going on. And, you know, it didn't start that morning. It probably was a problem that's been going on for some time. But because we never look, we don't find out. So what we built at Fountain Life was the world's most advanced diagnostic centers. We have 4 across the US today, and we're building 20 around the world. These centers give you a full body MRI, a brain vasculature, an AI-enabled coronary CT looking for soft plaque, a DEXA scan, a GRAIL blood cancer test, a full executive blood workup. It's the most advanced workup you'll ever receive. 150 gigabytes of data that then go to our AIs and our physicians to find any disease at the very beginning when it's solvable. You're going to find out eventually. You might as well find out when you can take action. Fountain Life also has an entire side of therapeutics. We look around the world for the most advanced therapeutics that can add 10, 20 healthy years to your life, and we provide them to you at our centers. So if this is of interest to you, please go and check it out. Go to fountainlife.com/Peter. When Tony and I wrote our New York Times bestseller, Life Force, we had 30,000 people who reached out to us for Fountain Life memberships. If you go to fountainlife.com/Peter, we'll put you to the top of the list. Really, it's something that is, for me, one of the most important things I offer my entire family, the CEOs of my companies, my friends. It's a chance to really add decades onto our healthy lifespans. Go to fountainlife.com/Peter. It's one of the most important things I can offer to you as one of my listeners. All right, let's go back to our episode. Very little time left. I'm going to go to Slido. How does sex activity positively or negatively impact sleep quality and routine?
Yeah, sex is great for sleep. We know that sex, as long as it, you're welcome. Sex does impact sleep beneficially. Sex, and mentioning no particular gender here to pay attention to, sex, as long as it accomplishes orgasm, results in about a 70 to 73% improvement in subjective sleep quality. If you don't have a partner, all is not lost. It turns out that self-stimulation can get you about 50% of the way there. So in terms of sleep credit, some have argued that you're making money hand over fist there. So both are. Look, if you're going to play some music, I'm going to go that direction.
My God.
I would also note that, by the way, for every 1 hour of sleep that a woman gets in addition to her norm, her interest in being physically intimate with her partner increases by 14%. Now, the libido drugs out there, things like Vyleesi, they can increase libido by about 24%. But you can get more than 50% of the way there with just an extra hour of sleep. So, yeah, I'm sure probably if there are any...
How long are you guys here today? Are you here through lunch?
All day and almost all of the night.
Okay. Give it up for these guys. They're going to be here. Find them. Let's give it up for Arianna and Matt Walker. If you enjoyed this episode, I'm going to be releasing all of the talks, all the keynotes from the Abundance Summit exclusively on exponentialmastery.com. You can get on-demand access there. Go to exponentialmastery.com.